He himself wanted to become a Nahual. He had to turn in his mother. It was time for a human sacrifice.
I know you killed your son. They ran outside, and when they got there, he saw coming out from the hen house this big black dog. And when he turned, he didn't seem like a dog. He looked more like a human in all fours covered in fur.
When he saw a chicken with dog legs, they saw him covered in blood.
If I go with you, we'll get chased. Please, take them to safety.
It was a dog. A big, scary black dog. Noises on her back. She felt as she was being followed. When she turned around, there was no one there.
Grabbed her by the hand. It started to transform. Fed, do you know how to become a Nahual?
Well, Rod, I think that's a secret that Nahuales keep to themselves.
I agree, but there is this very famous story from Oaxaca that happened in Huautla de Jimenez. The name of our protagonist is unknown since he's still alive, and the locals keep it a secret to keep him safe. But for the purpose of the story, let's call him Carlos. When Carlos was a kid and he was going to elementary school, a new kid arrived. His name was Cipriano. This new kid was weird. He didn't have friends and nobody wanted to come near him because it was rumored that his parents were warlocks. And not only that, they were Nahuales. But Carlos didn't care, and he started talking to him, and with time they became very good friends. It turns out both of them liked to go hunting after school. One day, Carlos asked, "Is it true that your parents are warlocks?" Cipriano told him, "Yes, but it's secret, don't tell anybody." And not only that, they are also Nahuales. When Carlos heard this, he wasn't scared. In the other side, he was excited. He thought that a human being able to transform into an animal was so cool, like a superpower from a movie. So he insisted to Cipriano to tell him more, to show him. Finally, Cipriano accepted and told him, "Okay, today after school, I'll bring you to my house." When they arrived, Cipriano's parents looked displeased. Cipriano told them, "Mom, Dad, calm down. He's my friend. I invited him." They didn't accept of this, but let it happen. Carlos says that inside the house there were demonic figures carved in wood, as well as many furs of many animals. There were furs of coyotes, wolves, horses. Carlos asked Cipriano, "What are all those furs for?" And he told him, "Those are Mom and Dad's enemies. They have wonder skins."
Hey Rod, what were all those skins for?
Well, as Cipriano said, they were from their parents' enemies. In other words, they were other Nahuales they had killed to acquire their forms.
What do you mean they had acquired it to become their form? Like, to disguise as them?
It is said Nahuales kill other Nahuales to be able to transform into the animals they transform. For example, let's say I'm a Nahual and I can transform into an eagle, and you're a Nahual and you can transform into a wolf. We will fight each other. If you kill me, you'll be able to transform into an eagle. But if I kill you, I'll be able to transform into a wolf.
That's crazy.
I know, right? But Carlos didn't think this was crazy. He thought it was amazing, and he didn't only wanted to know more. He himself wanted to become a Nahual. What he didn't know is that this idea would come at a terrible cost. Over the following days, Carlos insisted to Cipriano's parents to teach him, to let him join, to let him know he would do anything. He begged and begged until Cipriano's parents accepted. They would teach him how to become a Nahual. Cipriano's mom explained that there are two ways to become a Nahual. The first one is through blood, people that are born Nahuales. The second one is through a ritual. Since Carlos didn't have any connection with Nahuales, he would have to become a Nahual through a ritual. This is more complicated, but Carlos was so determined he was able to do so. So, when they got to 6th grade, Carlos started a diet to prepare himself to become a Nahual. This diet consisted of ashes, water, fruits, vegetables, and herbs Cipriano's parents gave to him. He did this for a year. At the end of 6th grade, during the summer, it was Carlos' birthday, and Cipriano told him he had a birthday present for him. Cipriano's parents had allowed Carlos to be present at Cipriano's first transformation. Carlos was excited about this. When the day came, Carlos went to a wooded place. There were a lot of people dressed with traditional clothes, and they were speaking in a kind of dialect, neither English nor Spanish. Carlos saw how they told his friend to lay on the ground. Then they told him to roll this way, roll the other way, among other things. It got to a point where he saw how his friend started to change shape. Cipriano was a big, robust, fat kid, so his first transformation was into a pig. Carlos saw how his friend became a pig and ran into the forest. He was impressed, but this only motivated him more to keep going on the Skinwalker's path. The next step Carlos had to do on his Skinwalker path was hunt an animal, but there was one condition. He had to hunt it with his own hands. Carlos wanted his first transformation to be a big and strong animal, but he was only able to hunt a possum. He was a little bit disappointed, but he still wanted to keep going with the process. So the day came when Cipriano's parents told him he was ready to transform. But there were two more steps he had to do. The first, he had to turn in his mother. It was time for a human sacrifice. The second, he had to get away from his family after he transformed, because he would be dangerous for him. They said that the people who transform through a ritual are obligated to drink human blood every time they transform. At this point, Carlos didn't want to continue with the transformation. He got scared. He realized what he was doing and he tried to get away. But it was too late. He was not able to get away. So, he ran from the town. He went to the town nearby looking for a priest to help him. He told everything to the priest. The priest tried to undo the ritual, but wasn't able to. The priest said the ritual was very strong since Carlos ate the raw possum. Carlos, scared, kept going from town to town, looking for some priests, some warlocks, asking everyone for help. Finally, a priest was able to help him and undo the ritual. Because Carlos went looking from town to town in Oaxaca, it is a really famous story. But since he's still alive, they keep his name hidden from foreigners. And that's how anybody can become a Nahual.
So the people he asked for help were the ones to tell the story?
That's right, you know how towns work. If some stranger comes and tells all this story, and he goes from town to town telling it, at the end everybody will know it.
Isn't it scary to think how much in common this story about a Nahual that transformed through a ritual has to consume humans every time he transforms is similar to stories of vampires and other creatures like werewolves?
I don't only think it's a strange coincidence, but I think there's something there. Some underlying secrets are not telling us about this type of rituals and about this type of people.
You know, something that comes across my mind is how in Mexico these stories about skinwalkers that are called Nahuales, most of them are big, black, scary looking dogs.
Or big animals. If it's not a big dog, it's a big bird, a big something.
And I don't know if you call it funny or curious or
Coincidence
maybe, but you see how they try like to hunt something from like normal humans, but not that much like trying to eat them, but trying to get like their energy or something to either keep transforming or to keep working on them.
They have an objective, or if not their energy, trying to get something.
The stories I'm gonna tell you are the scariest stories I had found about Nahuales. You know what's the scariest thing about these Nahuales for me? That they experience time in a different way as us normal people do. And let me tell you this story for you to understand what I mean. This is the story of Alice. She says that she was born around the 70s. When she was a kid, she learned how to speak very fast and how to communicate with adults in a very fast pace.
Like when she was 2-3 years old, or how old?
She says that her family used to tell her when she was 6 years old that talking with her was like speaking to a woman in a little body, for how good her vocabulary was, how good she used her grammar, and how she was able to express the ideas and the feelings that she was having. So it turns out she lived in a very close family. She was always with her uncles, aunts, grandparents, cousins, friends of the family speaking. They were very close. She had a lot of pets, she had toys, she had a lot of abundance while growing up. Until one day, their parents start facing some economic troubles. So they have to move out of the city to the skirts of the city where her parents had found a cheaper house. You know how in Mexico there's a lot of neighborhoods, but it's like the land over there is divided in lots for it to be house next to house that to when it's close to the city.
Yes, like how in the cities, the houses, there's no space between them. It's wall and wall, house, 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 one after another,
Yeah,
with no space between them.
The biggest space that there is between houses is like 5 centimeters, maybe like 2 inches, something like that. So turns out to the house they moved, it was the house with an empty lot next to it.
So like they hadn't built a house there yet. It was just the land.
Yeah, it was like a house,
the
an
land,
empty lot,
and a house.
and a house.
Okay.
So they moved to this house next to the empty lot, and she says that it was with a lot of weeds and a very big tree in the middle. When they were gonna move, that they were doing the final details on the move, her family being very united, her uncles, her grandparents, threw a party where they invited the neighbors for them to know it, for Alice to have friends on the neighborhood, and they to feel welcome on this.
So they threw a housewarming party, like for the neighbors, the new neighbors to get to know them, and they can get to know the new neighbors on their new house.
Exactly. So in this party, Alice says that she was playing with her cousins and the kids. The adults were inside the house, and the kids were playing outside. And they being kids, they didn't understood like it was an empty lot. Alice thought it was a very big garden that this house had.
So they were playing in the empty lot.
They were
And
playing.
that's very common. When I used to go to friend houses in Mexico, I used to play in other people's houses. I remember there was this house, this is a little bit off topic, that had this aquarium with koi fishes, and we used to go and see them, and because it was outside.
It's not like they were in the empty lot, but they were playing very close to it, or like in the skirts of it. Not inside of it, but very close to it. And she says that suddenly she felt a cold wind hit her, like a gust of wind that brought up the dirt. And when that happened, everything shut up. There was no noise at all. The games, the music, the other kids, complete silence.
Did she faint?
No, she says that something in her made her want to see that big tree on detail. And when she turned to see it, there it was, a huge bird, a very big bird. But what scared her the most was that when she was paying attention, she saw that bird had human eyes, as if a human was hiding inside it and was looking through the eye holes of the bird.
No.
Just like the other animals, you see how they always say that a Nahual keeps the human eyes when they transform?
All the story of Nahuales, they know they're Nahuales because their eyes are human.
Well, imagine seeing this on a big bird, looking at you, staring at you, being only 6.
What did she do?
Well, one of the other kids playing bumped into her and she fell on the ground. So she asked her, "Hey, are you okay? What's going on?"
Who? Alice asked her?
The other kid that bumped into Alice asked Alice, "Hey, what's up? What's going on? What's going on? What were you looking at?" And Alice told her, "Oh, nothing, I'm good." "Then, why does it look like you want to cry?" "It must be the dirt that got on my eye." So she stood up and kept on playing. The party went on, and when it was done with, Alice and her parents stayed in the house talking about the party, telling their experience, who they got to know, and talking like it was a very
The after
united
party
family.
talk.
Exactly, it was a very united family. So at night when Alice went to bed, she was already talking, and her mind started playing games on her. She started recreating everything that had happened to her, and suddenly, without noticing, she was in a deep sleep, recreating everything that had happened that day. Suddenly, she says that she felt how she couldn't move any longer. She could see her feet and the roof of her room, but she wasn't able to move. When she saw the window, she noticed that that big bird was right there, outside of her window in the second floor.
Looking at her?
In this part of the story, she doesn't say if he was looking at her, but it was more the shock of seeing that same bird outside her bedroom. Something that it was very weird of this bird was that one of the wings was a hand, and with that hand, it opened the window. It got inside, and she could hear the claws scratching the wooden floor when it got close to her. She was terrified. She couldn't move. She didn't understood what was going on. And suddenly, she could feel the breath of the bird next to her face. With its beak, it got very close to her face. This bird made a very high-pitched noise, and with that, Alice understood. You are mine. She was terrified, and suddenly she got the strength to start screaming. Her father ran into the bedroom and opened the door. What's going on? What happened? Alice had never experienced something like this. No one had explained her this event that could happen or what type of or event was going on in her life. She didn't have any idea of Nahuales. She was only 6. So she was feeling ashamed of having this experience and this dream and not knowing how to tell her parents about it. She told her dad, I dreamed with one of my dead pets and I felt really sad. Her dad stayed in the bedroom with her while she slept. While she slept, on the next morning,
So, she lied about the situation?
she didn't know how to express the situation. She was ashamed of it. On the next morning, she was awakened by the smell of breakfast. When she came down to the kitchen, her parents asked her again, Hey, what happened? Are you okay? She said again the story of the pet, and she thought it was just a dream and that was it. But from then on, this started to be a regular thing. She would dream with the bear every now and then, and every time it was more often. Until one day that she fell asleep and then she got sleep paralysis. She wasn't able to move, but she says she could see everything. And the window called her. Not the window per se, but something in the window wanted for her to turn around and see her. She says that was the first time she felt terrified. She as a kid had never felt that amount of fear ever in her life. She saw how this big bird opened the window again and got inside. This was the first time Alice was able to see it with every single detail on it. She says it had a medium-sized beak with these big human eyes that was looking at her, with feathers and fur on its skin. Instead of wings, it was like fur with feathers in 2 big arms, and the legs were the legs of a bird with the claws. I imagine it as the cross of a human and one of these big eagles that they were able to even carry babies, something like that. She says that it started getting close to her slowly, scratching the wooden floor, as she could hear it coming near it. And it was not only that she was hearing it, she was feeling the breath of this thing as it get closer and closer. The deep of that heavy breathing of a bird coming near to her, and then with that hairy, feathery hands starting caressing her hair, touching her face, getting very close to her, and with her beak, that high-pitched noise again. But this time, it told her, "You are mine. Remember, you are mine." Again, she burst into scream and crying. She lost it. Her dad rushed into the bedroom, opened the door, and turned on the light. What's going on? The first thing her dad did was close the window. He thought something had came in or the wind. He didn't understood why her daughter was in such a panic attack right there and then. She finally told them, "This is happening to me." She told them the first story about the party. She told them the first time she saw it, but She was so in shock that this time had seen every detail that she described it to her father as she saw it. Her father told her not to worry, that it was only a nightmare, that she was gonna be okay, that she only had a very vivid imagination. So he cuddled her and spent the night with her again. The next morning, when they were eating breakfast, her mother asked her and she told the whole story, but the both of them told her that it was just that, a vivid imagination. She was just having dreams, imagining things. This wasn't real. Suddenly, Alice went from being one of the most social kids to being one of the most introvert. She would sit in the corner of her room just looking at everyone, like staring, looking for someone. She wouldn't talk with no one anymore, neither her family, her parents, or her friends. She would just keep to herself, and every now and then she will have these nightmares that will make her cry and scream. After a while, her dad took her to one of these church that they make like liberations in Mexico, that they're not exorcisms, but they like keep you away from bad spirits and protect you. She says the priest put some holy oil on his hands and put it on her forehead and start saying some praise. After that, she never saw that big bird again.
So that was it?
One would think that, but 24 years went by, and she was very happy. She was even married. She had a kid. She had a little baby. Her daughter was only 6 months old, and she, her daughter, and her husband would share one bed sleeping together. Suddenly, had an opportunity at work to change his shift to the night shift and make more money, so he accepted. The first night her husband was away, started happening again. She got sleep paralysis. She thought to herself, this cannot be happening. This cannot be happening again. There's no way I'm this old and this is gonna happen to me. She was convinced that it was all her imagination, that nothing was real, that she was just being a very imaginative kid that had very vivid dreams. But then, that bird was again on the window. It opened it and came inside. She couldn't move. She says that she was hearing her baby cry as if her baby was in another room, but she could feel the baby next to her while she was holding her. This bird started getting close to them, and then she grabbed the baby foot. She felt how her baby girl was uneasy, was crying. She couldn't do nothing, and then suddenly she was able to hear noises from the front door. It was already morning, and her husband had just got in. He opened the door, he walked up to the bedroom, and when he opens the door, he sees her crying. He told her that she was crying on her sleep, and the baby was crying too. So he wakes her up, and he asks her what happened. The first thing she told him was the window. So he went to the window and closed it, and asked her again, what happened? Did someone break in? What's going on? And she told him, but he didn't believe her. She didn't want to talk a lot about it because she was able to tell that even he didn't tell her that didn't happen, he wasn't convinced of it. So they didn't talk a lot about it, but when she saw her baby foot, it had a scratch as if a claw had scratched her. And again, just as when she was a kid, this started to happen every time more often. Until one day, Alice says, until one night, she laid in bed with her baby, and suddenly, a gust of wind got inside the window. She felt chilly, like it was very cold. So she got up, she made sure to close the window, close the drapes, grab extra blankets, tuck in her baby really good, and she made sure to be tucked in too. When she went to sleep, she fell into a very deep sleep. She says she was in her childhood house. The first thing she did was look at the empty lot where the big tree was, and right there next to the big tree was that big scary bird. When she saw the big bird, she started running away, and she could hear how this bird was chasing her while flying. She made it to the house where she lives now with her husband, and she could hear that big bird just flying on top of the house. She closed the door, she locked the door, she closed every window, but when she got to her room, she was petrified because she saw on the bed her body sleeping next to her baby, and the window was open. She ran to the window and she tried to close it, but as she brought it down, this hand stopped her, and with superhuman strength, it opened the window again. This big scary bird jumped into the room with her. She was petrified, and for the first time in her life, she was able to see her facial features. She was terrified. She was completely scared. It was this bird with this medium-sized beak, but with the features of a human, with those big human eyes, full of fur and feathers, but it was as if these feathers and fur were like hair, and the face was clear as a human just with a beak.
So it was a human face?
Neither. It was a half human, half eagle, with those hands like wings full of feather and full of fur, with those claws, with that tail. It was a very weird thing, and it started getting close to them. Very, very slowly, scratching the floor. She didn't know what to do. She saw her baby girl starting to get uneasy, to cry, to be afraid. She didn't know what to do. This thing started touching the baby and grabbed the foot of the baby. And then it made that high-pitched noise again. But this time it said, "I haven't forget about y'all. Y'all are mine." Suddenly, she felt this urge to jump into her body, and when she did this, she was awake. The noise of her husband getting to the home was again on the door, but this time it wasn't as normal when he only opened the door. He was desperate to get in. He opened the door and ran to the bedroom, and when he tried to open the bedroom door, he says he couldn't because he was stuck with something. So he had to force the door to open it, and when he got there, she was crying, the baby was crying. He didn't understood what was going on. He started asking, "What happened? Are you okay? What's going on? Why are you crying? You didn't just wake up." She told him everything again, but this time he told her, "I could hear like something was scratching the floor from outside. I heard very weird noises coming from the house. What happened?" And she told him it grabbed our baby from the foot. When the both of them checked the baby girl, it had again a scratch on the foot. They really didn't know what to do. They were very scared. So they tried to fight this the best they could, and even though she was scared, she was determined that she was gonna protect her baby. Time went by, and one day, she being a housewife, she went to the groceries with her mother. They were at the supermarket, and you know how sometimes when you go to someone with a supermarket, you go grab the things you need and they go grab the things they need. So she got apart from her mother, grabbing the fruit she was going to buy, grabbing the vegetables she was going to buy, and suddenly she saw this woman get near her mother, and they start talking. Alice says her mother is a very calm person. She doesn't like to fight or to argue with people, but suddenly a conversation burst into this big discussion where these two ladies were going at it. Alice got to them and asked them, "Hey, what's going on?" And when they turned to Alice, she saw the same facial features as that big bird had. But when she saw her eyes, she was certain it was it, or it was her. She lost it. She started screaming, crying. She fell into the ground. She lost everything. People started getting close to see what was going on, what happened to Alice. This other woman just went away. When they got home, Alice confronted her mother. "Who's her? What's going on? What's happening?" Her mother had to tell her the truth. "When your dad and I got together, we were told we wasn't able to have kids." We weren't, ¿verdad? We were told we weren't able to have kids. Every doctor told us that it was impossible for us to get pregnant. So we went to see this witch. She told us she could help us to have a daughter, only one daughter. We asked her how much she wanted, and she told us, "I don't want any money from you." So we agreed, to work with her, and she only told us, when you have your kid, then I will collect my debt. We agreed, not knowing what we were getting into. So we started seeing it on a regular basis. We did every single ritual she told us to do, and suddenly I was pregnant with you. But when you were born, she told us she was ready to collect. After Alice knowing this, she went for help. She found prayers, she found a priest, and she was able for.
But what was the witch going to collect?
She wanted Alice as a baby. So Alice, learning this, found a priest and made sure for the priest to protect her daughter. The thing is that 26 years after that went by, and now Alice is looking again for help, and that's why she's telling this story. Because nowadays is her granddaughter, the one that has 6 years old, and says that she sees this big humanoid bird that comes at night and with a very high-pitched sound tells her that she is hers.
When a person gets to a high level, controlling magic, they think they're above the law?
They certainly start going after whatever they want.
And go after whoever they want.
This happened at Guerrero, and it's anonymous. You're gonna understand why after I tell you the story. In Guerrero, there are cities where if you study and want to graduate from university, you have to do social service. Normally in there, they don't send you to do a social service in the city. They send you to these locations that are far away from the city, and they're small towns that they don't have enough professionals to do that job. So that happened to her. She got sent so far away that she had to take a transit because there was no direct buses to that town. That's how far away from civilization she was. During the internship, she will go during the week, work the whole week, and then come back on the weekends to stay at her home with her family. One of these occasions, they asked her in the internship to bring some paperwork back to the city. She asked for an extension for her to be late on the next day, for her to be able to stay with her family and then take the first bus in the morning. They told her no, that she had to be there on time for her internship on the next day. She wasn't very happy about this, so she woke up at 5 a.m. in the morning to take the first bus to the next town for her to be able to take the first bus from the town to the city. She got there and she thought it was gonna be a normal process, that it was gonna take her maybe 3 or 4 hours. You know how in Mexico, bureaucratic paperwork can take a long time.
They ask for the picture, they ask for this document, this many copies. They start asking for so many things that it can even take days.
That day, it took her the double of time. She spent almost 8 hours doing that paperwork. When she saw the time, she knew she had to run to make it to the buses in time for her to make it to the town where she was doing the internship. This happened in the early 2000s. Back then in Guerrero, they didn't have public lighting on these towns, so everyone carried one oil lamp for them to be able to see. She was able to make it to the first town, and she had to run for the bus station to make it to the last bus for her to be able to make it to the town where she was doing the internship. It was around half a mile she had to walk, 1 kilometer. When she was walking this distance, she says she started hearing noises on her back. She felt as she was being followed. When she turned around, there was no one there. So she ran to the bus station and she was able to make it for the last bus before it left. It was around 9:10 at night when she made it to the bus station. She bought her ticket and she was waiting for the departure of the transit for her to make it to the town where she was doing the internship. She says she was the only person to get on the bus and that no one arrived to the town that she was doing the internship with her. When she got out of the bus, she still felt as if someone had came with her from the other town. Even though she was feeling like if she was being stalked, She felt at ease because she didn't know no one in the other town. And at least in this town, she already know people, and she had this small house that someone lent her for her to live at while she was doing her internship. So she thought this feeling was mostly that she had to hurry up and make it home. She made it home very fast. She got there, closed the door, and she lived in a very small house with just a small kitchen and her room. In her room was her bed, the bathroom, and a window. Guerrero, being a state that is in the coast, it's a very hot state, and over there she didn't have any AC or a fan. So she got home, opened her window, and jumped into the shower, took a bath, got ready to go to bed, and she lay down in bed looking at the window as she normally did. Suddenly, she fell into a deep sleep. And as everyone else in these stories we have told, she got sleep paralysis. Suddenly, she saw this shadow coming from the window. Being a woman living alone on Guerrero, she thought the worst. She thought it was a man trying to get in and do the worst to her. But when this shadow jumped into the bedroom, she saw it wasn't the face of a human. It was a dog. A big, scary black dog. She heard her paws on the wooden floor. At first, she thought it was just a vivid dream, nothing more. But then, she felt how it started smelling her foot. The snout breathing her from the foot to the leg coming up, feeling the drawling from its nuts, feeling the hot air coming out and in from its nose, smelling her. She was terrified, petrified. So she wasn't able to move, but she thought to herself that she could pray, and she started praying everything she knew. She asked for the help of saints, angels, Jesus Christ, whoever that could intervene in this. And suddenly, she woke up. She was able to move. She looked around looking for the dog in the bedroom, but nothing was there. She stood up and closed the window. She locked the window in the way that it couldn't be opened again. She tried to go back to sleep, but she couldn't. She would sleep like 20 minutes at a time and then wake up being scared, looking for something to be on the room, until she saw the room was still empty. Suddenly, around 4 o'clock in the morning, she fell into a deep sleep. As she fell asleep, again the sleep paralysis got her. She saw this shadow come to the window again, and this dog, with its snout, opened the window. It jumped back into the bedroom and walked near her, hearing how with its paws will scratch the wooden floor. This time, it didn't get near to her feet to smell it. It went straight to her neck. She was feeling the wet nose of the dog on her skin, the breath coming in and out of the dog, the drooling on her neck, how it was just smelling her. Suddenly, she remembered that the first time she got there to that town, a lady told her, "Be very careful because there are warlocks around and they like to pay special attention to young ladies like you." She was terrified. She was afraid. She was very nervous. She didn't know what to do. And then she felt how it got closer and closer. But she remembered that when she was a kid, her grandma had told her to be careful with the Nahuales and taught her that she could take control of that situation. That first, she had to calm her mind. Then she would have to calm her spirit. And she would have to pray, being determined that she could kick that thing away. But it was very hard to do this, because this dog was starting to get on bed with her. She could feel the mattress sank with her. So she did as her grandma taught her. She calmed her mind. She calmed her soul. She calmed her spirit. And then her prayers, for being someone that was begging for help, she was determined to kick this thing away. She woke up, and again, she was alone. There was nothing there. But when she saw the window, she could see where that dog had put the snout to open the window. She closed the window again, And being away from her family in a town where she didn't know no one, being this afraid, and in that time that there was no phone signal on that town, the only thing she could do was cry. So she hugged her pillow, she tucked in and cried it out. But after that night, she knew how to fight it. And even though every now and then she can see that thing from the corner of her eye on her dreams, she makes sure to face it while praying determined to not let nothing or no one hurt her never again.
It seems there's always a way to fight back.
It has to be. It it needs to be. Nahuales are always after something. Some of them are after protecting someone, and others are after getting something from others. But the scariest thing is when they go after kids.
And not only kids, but your child, your grandchild, your great grandchild.
And it's very scary to think that they are not affected at time as we are, like the story of that big bird that she went after the grandmother, after her daughter, and now going after her granddaughter. What else do you think they face different at us normal people?
Time might not affect them as it affects us, but I can assure you, they can be affected. Let me tell you a story that happened in El Carmen, La Scala. This happened to Victoria when she was a baby. Her mother says they were sleeping when she got sleep paralysis. She couldn't move, but when she turned, she saw a black cat standing on her dresser with human eyes. She got scared, but then the cat started to walk towards her. She got concerned for her baby, and from somewhere she got the strength to shout. When she screamed, the cat jumped, and her husband and mother-in-law came running. What's wrong? There was a black cat in the dresser. It had human eyes. Her mother-in-law told her son, "Look for it. That's a Nahual. It wants the baby." They went looking for it all around the house, and they found it, hiding behind a door. They tried to take it outside, but the Nahual wouldn't leave.
So they tried to scare him out, and he didn't leave the house.
He stayed. They tried to move him with a broom, push him. He wouldn't move. The cat wouldn't leave the house.
It was determined to get that baby.
He was. So the mother-in-law said, "We have no other choice. Beat him up." They took him out to the yard. The mother-in-law said, "Son, light up a fire. We have to burn it." The cat, when he heard that, he started to meow and tried to run away. But the mother-in-law didn't let him. She grabbed him by the tail. The cat scratched, meowed, tried to get away. Once the fire was lit, she threw it into the fire. The cat meowed, but not in pain. It was a dark meow. He was saying something. Something they couldn't understand. Something a cat wouldn't say. They were scared.
The cat was not burning. It was like if the flames were around the cat, but the cat was not in fire. He was inside the pit and it wasn't burning?
He wasn't meowing of pain. They think the warlock that was on a wall was doing some black magic to not burn. They got really scared of this, and they ran inside, locked the doors, and started praying until they fell asleep. The next morning, they went outside, scared, but thinking the cat would be dead. They would find a body, ashes, something. When they went to the backyard, there was nothing. No ashes, no cat. It was like if the fire didn't even happen. They say that other Nahuales came to his aid and got him out. The strangest part is that weeks later, they found out one of the neighbors had suffered terrible burns. He was sick and in a lot of pain. They said this neighbor was a warlock.
So you think because it was a town full of Nahuales and witches, others like him came to his aid?
Possibly, maybe. If they're a community, they should give help between them, no? But maybe time doesn't affect them. Maybe they know spells should not burn. But you can still hurt them if they try to hurt you.
And I guess that's why they're never gonna add an abuelita to a scary movie, huh? Hey Rod, do you believe in curses?
I do believe there are some events that are unlucky, but how can you prove something is cursed?
And do you think that someone has to curse you? Or do you think your actions could curse yourself?
Well, this is easy. If you do something that has negative repercussions, you can call it a curse, and somebody else can affect you negatively. So, yes.
Well, this happened in a small town back in Mexico. Turns out that this family was having dinner inside. They were all together, the two sons, mom and dad. And suddenly, they heard a lot of noise coming from outside their house. When they ran outside, they saw this big dog fighting with a big crow. Both of them were weird looking. Suddenly, the crow with its beak took the eye of the dog out. The dog rolled in pain while screaming. When the crow saw them outside, he ran away. The crow didn't flew away. It ran away through some bushes until it disappeared.
It ran in both of his legs?
Yeah, in both of his paws just
Instead of flying.
How
weird.
The family thought the same. That was the first thing. They thought it was very weird. But when the dad saw the dog, he wasn't sure it was a normal dog. It seemed weird, the fur, the shape, the size. So he took a stick and he chased him away from their house. The youngest son went to see the scene, and while he was cleaning everything, he saw the eye, and he thought it seemed strange. It resembled more the human eye than a dog eye, so he picked it up and put it in the jar. On the next day, he went to one of his friends that was a vet, and he showed him the eye, asking him, "Do you think this is a dog eye?" When he saw it and he analyzed the eye, he told him, "You have to get rid of this right away. I don't know where you get it from, but if someone finds out you have this eye, you can get in a lot of troubles. Even you can go to jail. This is a human eye." The vet had thought that he had seen a crime scene and took it as a souvenir from it. But instead of getting rid of the eye, he thought it was very amusing that he had found an eye that came out of a dog that a vet thought it was a human eye. So he put some chemicals on it to preserve the eye. Time went by, and after a couple of weeks, his dad had a terrible accident. He was in a crash and he almost died. It was a miracle that he came out alive from that accident. After that, his mom started telling them that she saw this weird guy with a patch on the eye following her around through the town every time she went out to the market or something. His older brother told him, "We have to do something about that eye." So they went to see a warlock. When the warlock saw the eye, he immediately told them,
We have to do a ritual to get rid of this thing.
So they turned on a fire pit. The warlock said some prayers and made some things for the ritual to work. And when everything was ready, he took the eye out of the jar, saying some words, threw it in the fire. After a while, the fire was extinguished, and the only thing left on the fire pit was that eye. The warlock told them,
I don't want nothing to do with that. You better take that away with you.
so they grabbed the eye and took it away. The craziest thing is that they are now telling this story because they don't know what else to do. Now, the younger brother was hospitalized because he lost an eye.
So he took a knife and he lost his own?
It seemed like that Nahual, or that Skinwalker, went for the phrase an eye for an eye, huh?
Or maybe the eye was cursed.
Or maybe now that family is cursed because they took something that wasn't theirs.
Do you know about a story of Nahuales that is documented on newspapers?
Is that even possible, Rod?
Well, let me tell you a story of Nahuales that made it to the news. Now, this story was treated in a very special way. This happened in Chingahuapan, Mexico. There were two people that know what really happened. These two are siblings, a brother and a sister. The brother had a chicken farm and he sold to the town regularly. One day, he received an order from the Carrasco family. The Carrasco house was far away on top of a hill. They had to go through dirt roads to get there. So he told his sister if she could come with him, since they were gonna be back until night. So they went. They started to go up the hill through that dirt road. They went slowly, trying to not hit nothing and trying to avoid an accident. But suddenly, something hit the car. They got scared and they were uncertain if they had hit something or something had hit them. The brother got down and got scared when he saw a chicken with dog legs. He also noticed that chicken had no eyes. After the chicken hit the car, it stood up and kept walking. But since he was blind and didn't have eyes, he went downhill, rolling. The brother tried to look, but it was already night and dark and he lost it. After that, they kept going uphill towards the Carrasco house. When the serf heard they arrived, he screamed for help. They went inside, scared of what they might find. When they got into the living room, they saw him, covered in blood. He was wounded from the head, from the shoulders, from the stomach, from the chest, from the arms, from the legs. All his body was wounded. They asked what had happened and what could they do to help. Should they call an ambulance, the police? What can they do? He told them if they could please take his wife and newborn baby down the hill into the town. Please, he begged. They told him no, they would take him too. He was very badly wounded. They wouldn't leave him in that state. After going back and forth, he told them,
If I go with you, we'll get chased. Please, take them to safety.
They finally agreed. The wife told them if they could leave her at the family member's house. They went and left her and the baby there. After that, 1 day went by, 2 days went by, 3 days went by. A lot of policemen started going around the town. This was weird. Since it was a little town, it was very strange for a crime to happen. They started asking what was going on, but nobody wanted to tell them. Until they asked a policeman, "What's happening? Why are you so busy now?" They told them,
There had been a murder at the Carrasco house.
the husband, the wife, and the baby were found dead. They think it was a murder, but they aren't sure, since there were a lot of wolf fur laying around. But they think it was a murder because the bodies were not eaten or consumed.
They were chopped into pieces.
And what happened then?
Well, this made the news, but nobody knew what happened to the Carrasco family until a couple months later. The siblings were doing their normal deliveries when they saw walking a man without eyes. The man told them if they could pull over, so they did. They rolled down the window, and the man told them, "So, what happened to the chickens?" After that, the siblings believed that the Carrasco family died to another Nahual family, and that they were fighting for something.
So Rod, do you think this story is like Carlos' story? And there were Nahuales fighting Nahuales for their furs?
I do believe Nahuales were fighting other Nahuales. For the reason, I'm not sure. But there's one thing that really bothers me, and it's the man with no eyes, and the rooster with no eyes. How is it possible that humans can transform into animals?
You know, other thing that I found it very weird on these stories? The police said that there were a lot of wolf skins there. If he didn't take their skins to turn into a wolf, what reason do you think he could have to do all this?
I'm not sure about anything about this story. I'm only certain one Nahual won, and it wasn't the Carrasco family. What do you think about Nahuales?
Well, Rod, I think that at a certain point these humans became so strong in magic and had so much knowledge that they start losing their humanity. And they got to this point where they start following their instincts and they start becoming more like animals with a lot of power. Let me tell you the story about Genaro. He used to tell this story to his granddaughter. Genaro lived in a small town back in Mexico. He had a friend when he was young. One of these days that they were together at his friend's house, suddenly a lightning storm struck the town. There was a lot of rain and a lot of lightning, so Genaro's friend told him that he couldn't go home, that he should stay the night there for them to know that Genaro was gonna be safe. When Genaro went to bed, suddenly he started hearing as the dogs bark outside. You know how in this small town, when someone passed by, dogs bark until the people is gone. The dogs were barking like that. Genaro couldn't sleep, so he stayed awake listening to the dogs. Suddenly, he heard some very strange noises coming from the hen house. He peeked through the window trying to see what the dogs were barking at. He could only see the dogs pulling from their chains, trying to get at the hen house. So he tried to peek at the hen house, but he wasn't able to see what was going on over there. He only could hear the racket that was coming from that place. So he opened the window and he poked his head out. When he did that, he got petrified. He saw coming out from the hen house this big black dog. And when he turned, he didn't seem like a dog. He looked more like a human in all fours covered in fur. Suddenly, the dog turned and locked eyes with Genaro. They saw each other. Genaro noticed that in the neck of this dog had a green collar covered in blood. He was so afraid that he jumped and got out of the bedroom running to get his friend. He woke his friend up and told him, "Something is attacking the chickens. Something is out there." His friend woke up and asked him, "What did you saw? What happened?" "There was a big black dog out there. Something very strange." They ran outside, and when they got there, nothing was there. There was no dead animals. There was no blood. Even the dogs were asleep. Genaro was very confused. So each of them went back to bed. The next morning, Genaro woke up and went outside looking where he had seen this dog. Outside was his friend's mom just cleaning up and doing some chores. When she turned around to greet him, he noticed that she was wearing a green collar covered in blood. After that, Genaro stayed friends with his friend. 2 to 3 months went by before Genaro stepped back again into his friend's house. One day that he was going to visit his friend, he heard some weird noises coming from inside the house. Genaro peeked through one of the windows to see his friend being attacked by this black dog. Genaro tried to break in to get into the house, but he couldn't. He tried to find some help there, but there was no one there. So Genaro went to the window. He was about to break the window when he saw his friend just making some signs of him to leave. He was telling him to run away. So that's what Genaro did. He ran. After 2 to 3 hours, he came back to the house. And there, it was his friend's mom sitting outside the house, looking strange. So Genaro came up to her and asked her, "Hey, how's my friend doing?" She told him he was good, that he was doing very fine. Actually, he had to leave town to go work at somewhere else. Genaro was very scared, but at the same time, he was extremely mad. At first, he didn't say nothing. He just stood there, gathering up courage to confront her. When he finally felt brave enough, he told her, "I saw you. I saw you that night transform into a dog, covered of blood, with that same green collar that you're wearing. I know what you did. I know you killed your son." She, without even moving from her place, only looked at him and told him,
I know you saw me, but I didn't kill my son. Whatever attacked my son was someone else. There's a family here that they don't like us. But I swear to you, I swear that I will take revenge.
She then went inside the house and came back with a little box and told Genaro,
Here, my son will have liked you to have you.
After that, Genaro kept on going every day back to his friend's house. 3 days went by before someone found the dead body of his mom's friend in a ravine covered on her own blood. Genaro knew she tried to take revenge, but whatever he saw ending his friend's life killed his mom too. After that, Genaro never opened that box. He told his granddaughter that he never did. Now, Genaro is dead, and he left to his granddaughter that same box. She's the one that shared this story and tell us that now that she has on her possession that green color, he's gonna find a way to use it to shape shift into an animal. Rod, do you really think Nahuales exist?
I believe there are a lot of powerful warlocks around the world, and that some of them may have the ability to transform into Nahuales. We might not know about them or see them. We don't know if it's a lot or very, very, very little. But I do believe this power exists in the world.
I also think they exist, and I think they are in other places than not just Latin America. I think Nahuales are all over the world, but not everyone is willing to share this story because sometimes it can go against their own beliefs.
Let me tell you the story about a Mormon. Do you know about Mormons?
Those guys that wear shirt and a black tie and go knocking on doors asking to speak about the Lord of Jesus, right?
Yes, those that are always well dressed, speaking to others about the Lord's word. Well, these congregations went in missions to other countries, trying to talk about the Lord's word. They had an opening in the Haiti mission, and this guy said he wanted to go. They warned him that they had an opening because the guy before him had disappeared. They didn't know what happened to him. They told the police, and the police investigated, but after a while they just assumed that he was dead. You know how it is in these countries. If there's no evidence, no body, nothing, and he just disappeared, they just assume the worst. After this warning, he still decided he wanted to go. So he arrived there, and they warned him. More than a warning, they recommended him to avoid visiting certain places because the Mormons were badly welcomed there. Since Haiti is a place where a lot of people believe in witchcraft, black magic, and this type of stuff, it is harder for them to predict the Lord's word, but they're still committed to communicating it to the world. So they told him this. But he didn't really care and decided to visit one of these places. When he arrived, people stared at him. They looked at him meanly. He didn't really care and started going, knocking door after door. Nobody opened. They peeked through the window, saw him, and then ignored him. He kept doing this for hours, until suddenly, somebody answered. A man shouted to him,
Leave! You're not welcome here.
Finally, somebody had answered. He thought, this is my moment, and kept knocking. Please, sir, come out. I just want to talk with you. Please. The man opened the door. It was an old man with a cane. He told him again.
Go away. Stop harassing. Nobody wants you here.
The Mormon thought this was his chance. He was the first one that had opened the door, and he was not going to surrender. So he kept being persistent. Let me tell you about the word of Jesus Christ. Let me talk to you about him.
I told you, go away.
The old man tried to hit him with his cane, but he stepped away. And then the man fell into the ground. The whole street turned to see what had happened, and they saw the old man laying on the floor. Suddenly, he had a crowd surrounding him, telling him things, telling him, leave, what are you doing here? Nobody likes you here. And they started pulling and pushing him. He thought, nothing good is going to happen here. He was scared. Luckily, a man started to come down the crowd. Please, come down. Let him go. Come on. The crowd started to come down, and this guy told him, leave now. He didn't think it twice, and he ran away from that situation. He understood why they told him not to go there, and he was feeling like an idiot. Thinking, why did I go there? Why would I do this to myself? He arrived at the house where the Mormons were staying and went into his room, took a shower, got ready to go to bed. He was still frustrated, but when he was ready to go to bed, he did his best to calm down, lay on his bed, and started going to sleep. Out of nowhere, he started to smell something disgusting, horrible. He didn't know what it was, but it made him stand up, turn on the lights, and look for the source of the smell. Underneath his bed,
There were fresh human feces.
He didn't notice the smell when he got in his room.
there was no smell when he walked in his room. Started to smell when he was already laying on the bed. But well,
What?
he had to go to bed, so he went for some cleaning supplies and cleaned it up. After that, he went to bed. When he was sleeping, he had a horrible nightmare. He dreamed
About the old man, but he was laying on the floor with his tongue out, and his tongue was not a human tongue. It was a beefy tongue, like a snake. The man didn't walk or didn't crawl. He moved like a snake on the ground. He got very scared, but what woke him up was that once the old man was close enough to him, he struck and beat him.
he woke up screaming, grabbing his arm. His colleagues came running to see what was going on. When they turned on the light, they saw
An enormous snake on top of the bed. The snake hid underneath the bed.
they took this Mormon out of his room and gave him first aid. It seemed he had been bitten in the arm by this snake. After that, they went back inside the room and started looking for the snake. They turned the room upside down, but couldn't find the snake. They took him to the hospital. It turns out the snake was very venomous, and he was in the hospital for days. They even intubated him. Once he was out of the hospital, when he was leaving, he saw the man who helped him get away from the crowd. He came close and told him, "Hey, thank you for what you did the other day," and told him the story about the snake and why he had been in the hospital. The man that helped him told him, "You have to get out of this island. The old man that is after you is a Bokor, a very powerful wizard here in Haiti. You have to leave. He's after you. And the Bokors don't stop until they see the people they want to harm dead." He understood and was ready to leave, but he had to ask this man a question. A question he was even ashamed to ask. He told him, "Thank you very much, but why are you helping me?" The man looked at him and smiled. "You know, here in Haiti, we are rare, but I'm also a believer in God, and I'm helping you out of brotherhood. So please, leave the island for your own safety." Grateful for the advice, he left immediately. He went back to the United States looking for safety. There, he went back with the Mormons, but he realized this was not a thing that was attached to a physical place.
What do you mean this wasn't attached to a physical place?
Well, the attack was spiritual, and spirituality is not attached to physical locations like you or I am, like our bodies are. If you imagine your soul, you could say it's attached to your body, but if someone's attacked you spiritually, they don't need to be near you or close to you for it to have an effect. So some things that happened to him was that his room got full with flies, only his room. So many flies, the sunlight struggled to come in through the window.
That's nasty.
Nobody wanted to get near him. He was like a repellent for people. He noticed this and thought the only way he could beat this was working spiritually. So he prayed more. He talked to people about the Lord's word, even though each time he did it with less and less strength. It came to a point where he couldn't continue with this. So, against his religion, he went looking for a warlock that was at the same level. He told his story to the warlock, and the warlock told him some rituals they could do to fight it. And they did these rituals. Today, he keeps fighting against the curses this Bokor sends him. But even though he's a Mormon, he finds comfort with the warlock as well as with his God that he prays. He doesn't leave him alone.
The first event that happens to someone that is being haunted by a Nahual is getting sleep paralysis. Isn't that weird?
They don't only get sleep paralysis, but a Nahual haunts their dreams. Let me tell you a story that happened to a teenage girl. that lived with her parents and brother. One night, they were having dinner together. She was very reserved about her room. She didn't like nobody going into her room. Once she was finished, she said thank you and went to sleep. When she opened the door, she felt someone was inside her room, watching her. She felt weird, watching into her room with the lights off, feeling how someone was watching her. She turned on the lights and asked, "Mom?" Nobody answered. She went around her room, opened her closet, checked everything, even under the bed like a little kid. Nothing. No one was there. She thought it was only her imagination. She started to get ready to go to bed. First, she got undressed, and when she was only wearing her underwear, she felt how this sensation that somebody was watching her got stronger. She hurried up to put her pajamas on. Then, she turned off the lights and went to bed. She slept face down. She says she went to sleep immediately, like if somebody had made her go to sleep. She dreamt she was in her old elementary school. At that time, she was 17. There, she could see the kids playing on the playground, the parents waiting outside for their kids to come out, the teachers taking care of the kids. And there, she saw the tree she used to play around. And on top of the tree, there was a cat. She thought it was very cute. She was used to having cats. She had a cat at home and she loved them. This was a great cat, but she could only see her side. Suddenly, it turned, and she got scared, petrified. She couldn't move. She says it was like if the cat had control over her. The cat had human eyes. She was thinking, scared. She had to run away, do something, but she couldn't move. The cat started to walk between the branches towards her. She was scared, terrified, didn't know what to do. But the worst was about to come. The cat jumps out of the tree and lands behind her. Then he starts going around her like if she's the prey. She knew something bad was going to happen. Suddenly, the cat stopped in front of her, sat down, and then it started to transform. The cat sat in front of her, looking at her, staring at her. She was terrified. Those human eyes that looked at her. Suddenly, the cat stood up and started to transform into this humanoid cat. Then, its paw, that was now a hand, grabbed her by the hand so strongly. She couldn't move, but she felt the pain. Then, the cat walked to her back while grabbing her hand. She was scared, thinking this couldn't be happening, thinking that there had to be a way to get out. Suddenly, with its other paw, that was now a hand, it started grabbing her by the neck, by the shoulder, by the back. She knew something bad was going to happen, but the worst was about to come. Suddenly, she could feel its whole body, including its genitals. She knew the worst was about to come. She remembered she had been told that if you insult them, you shout at them, you tell them to go, you can get away. So she started to do that. He started to scream, shout, tell him, get away, get away. No, I don't allow it. I don't allow it. She noticed not a word came out of her mouth. She was saying all this in her head. Finally, of her struggle and of her shouting, from the struggle, she managed to wake up, but she couldn't move. She was facing down, and there, she felt it. It was on her back. She could still feel it touching her completely with all its body. She kept on insulting him. She was finally able to move. She stood up, started looking around the room. When she turned to see the window, she saw it. When she turned to the window, there it was, the same cat as her dream, with those eyes. She grabbed a guarache and ran to the window to throw it at it. The cat jumped. When she opened her window, she looked down and saw a man wearing an overcoat and sandals. He looked up and smiled with the same eyes as the cat. She saw him disappear into the night. She went back to sleep, confused, thinking it had only been a dream. When she woke up the next day, she went to the bathroom to get ready to go to school. And there, she felt weird. When she looked into the mirror, she saw she was full of marks. Her body was full of wounds. There, she realized it hadn't been a dream.
You know, I don't know what's worse. A Nahual chasing you, a Nahual hunting you, or a Nahual trying to abuse you.
I'm certain the worst is having a Nahual near you. Those things are scary. Fed, after all these stories about Nahuales, do you believe in them?
I certainly do. And I think these people that are connected to a certain type of source that can manipulate reality into transforming it into what they want are really powerful. And I think everyone should watch out for them. What do you think about them, Rod?
I think they have very specific interest, and with time, these interests stop being them, and more of the form they take, like instincts that are developed with magic. I think they don't pose a threat to people, but I think if one is near you, it's very easily for them to pose a threat to you.
You know, there's a Mexican scientist that studied them, that wrote books about them, about good Nahuales, people that help others. He even came to work at a university in the US. If you would like us to talk about Jacobo Greenberg or another specific topic, let us know in the comments.
The next topic we're going to talk about is witchcraft. There, you will have one bonus story about Nahuales and witchcraft together. So be on the lookout for that. And thank you for your time. I hope you got entertained, but most importantly, scared.